Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here today. I have known you and Lori for so long, and I know I'm so inspired by both of you. I mean, your relationship, what you both have created. Lori's podcast actually was one of the first podcasts I listened to, Earn Your Happy, and just got obsessed with podcasts. I was listening to hers every single day because I think I was 300 episodes behind. So I listened to a lot of hers, and then Love for Money, your podcast I love. So yeah, I'm just so happy and honored to have you on.
Thank you, Erica. It means a lot to be on. I know you take your audience seriously, so it's an honor.
Thank you. Well, so for those that don't know you and wondering who this Lori is that I'm talking about, if you could tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. So, Lori and I, the reason we know you is we're out here in California, and as it stands today, we're entrepreneurs and philanthropists and podcasters and all the fun things. But that's not what the story has always been. Matter of fact, you know what's so crazy about the story, Erica, is right now, as you and I record this, we as a nation or as a world are facing another like crisis economy, so to speak. And as we record this right now, I'll just for comparison's sake, I'll give this. Lori and I, we have solely own or have ownership in 8 different 7 and 8 figure companies, businesses. And facing this current financial crisis that we are and this pandemic that we are, we feel really fortunate. You and I were talking offline a little bit. We feel really fortunate to be in the situation that we are this time, because the last time, like 12 years ago, that financial crisis, we were in the exact opposite end of the spectrum. It was 2008, 2009. Everyone knows it was a banking recession, and I was in banking. So what the worst place you could possibly be, right? And I was in the Midwest because I'm Midwest born and raised. And at this time, we were living in Minneapolis. And we had just finished building this great big home that was way more than we needed. And we had more new cars than we needed. And we had wasted our money just trying to fill our days on dumb stuff that we didn't need. And when that financial crisis hit, when the music stopped, we were left holding a bag, and it was a bag of garbage. It was just tons of debt, and we were in way over our heads. And I was the only breadwinner because I was in banking, and of course lost my job when I, in a banking recession. And the reason I share this story is when you said, hey, who are you and what do you represent and what's the story? I really want people to understand that when you come across somebody who's explaining who they are today, it probably wasn't that long ago that they were somebody very different. And that time 12 years ago, that was a time of pivoting, and that was a time of reinvention. And that was a time where our backs were against the wall. We had to short sell that house we just finished building. We had to get rid of all the cars. We had to take my severance package. It's a multi 6-figure severance package and apply it all towards debt, getting rid of rental properties and all that stuff. And Erica, even that wasn't enough. We had to put all of our furniture, all of our belongings, our art, the grills, the TVs, everything. We had to put it all on Craigslist and let car after car pull up in front of the house. And person after person, couple after couple walk into the house and bargain for the couches, bargain for the TVs, bargain for the chairs, whatever they wanted, and walk out with our belongings while the neighbors looked on judgingly. And it was probably the most humiliating time. We were already that young couple that, what were they doing in this neighborhood full of families and big homes? And it felt like, I'm sure to the neighbors, an I told you so moment. And to Lori and I, it felt humiliating. But I'll tell you, this was what forced us to move into a less than 900 square foot apartment, a little 1-bedroom studio type apartment, and choose how we wanted to show up, hit the reset button, pivot, reinvent. And it was that time that it did not feel good during it. I'm not going to convince anyone listening that it felt good during it, but it was that time that gave us the chance to choose again and become the people that, well, for example, I wouldn't be on this podcast without that moment in time. And, you talked about Lori's podcast. You wouldn't have that to listen to without that moment in time. And we wouldn't have the businesses and everything else without that moment in time. And so if anybody's listening right now, if you've got financial uncertainty, or if you feel like you just lost your job or you lost your business, or if you feel like you have no choices or no options, I'm telling you, I know what it feels like, but with a few of the right moves, you'll be able to come out of this an absolute success story. And you'll look back on this time and you'll be able to say that was one of the best times of my life. And again, it won't feel like it during it, but you'll look back on it with such fondness and such appreciation for having that back against the wall moment, that you're going to have that time when you, the listener, are now being interviewed on a podcast, and you get to share your journey as well.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all that. I think it's important when somebody shares something that another person can relate to, that you were in that position as well in 2008. You did mention that it was uncomfortable and everything, your experience when you were in it, but how did you know what to do in that moment? I mean, was it like, right, like fight for your life, like whatever, we have to sell everything, that's our only way to do it, we have to do this, and like, how did you know the right thing to do?
A great question. So first of all, we knew that we had to stop the bleeding. And that's why we sold everything, short sold the home, moved in that small apartment. You know what we did with all the money from selling all the furniture and the bags and art and everything on Craigslist? It gave us just enough cash to prepay the rent on that little apartment for 12 months. Mm. And so now we finally hit zero, right? We were so far below zero. We finally hit zero. And that gave us the space, the runway, the lack of pressure to be able to actually make long-term decisions about what we wanted to do in life, how we wanted to show up in the world, how we wanted to serve, what we wanted to create at that moment, instead of making decisions from putting out fires right now. And Erica, this is a really important answer, because people right now, if they don't make some dramatic moves, it was dramatic to sell the furniture on Craigslist and let the strangers walk out with our stuff. It was dramatic to have the neighbors look on. I remember this one guy named Greg. Greg was a jerk, and he came over and he said, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And I said, "Well, lost my job in banking, and we short sold the home, and we're selling all this stuff so that we can go start over." And Greg looked at me and he said, "Don't you know that this is going to ruin the rest of the values in the neighborhood?"
Yeah.
And I thought, "You asshole." But
Greg,
the reason I share that, Erica, is because when I say you got to do some extreme things that your ego might not want to do, you need to do those extreme things that your ego doesn't want to do in order to put yourself in position, like our position, where we were able to prepay that 12 months rent and have the runway to choose again. Because you need runway to be able to make good long-term decisions. You need runway to be able to not put out the fire now decisions. You need runway to be able to experiment a little bit. Because the truth is, your question was, how did I know what to do? I didn't know what to do. I just knew I needed to stop the bleeding and put myself in a better position to take some of the stress off. And from that place, we were able to experiment and make better decisions. Amazing. And I'll tell you, I really made an effort to try and figure out what other people did that weren't suffering in that financial crisis, what they did right. And hence the show, like where I interview all the millionaires and billionaires and experts and all that. That is really just a result of this curiosity that I had of what are the right moves to make with your money, and what should you be doing, and how should you be thinking? Because I didn't have any of those skill sets really prior to this time happening to us. And so it was a time of like seeking mentors. It was a time of, we always had that hunch that we wanted to be entrepreneurs. So it was a time of diving into that. It was a time of messing up a lot of things, but giving ourselves grace and then trying again. And you don't have to know what to do to answer your question. You just have to take a lot of action, take some extreme action, and be really consistent. Like every time you get redirected, just point towards that destination again. And if you do that, you'll figure it out. You'll know what to do eventually.
I love that. Such good advice. So you talked about runway. I would love if you could explain that, because I think this is, I've heard you speak about this. So I think it's really important for people to understand what that looks like and how to set ourselves up in the best way.
Yeah. So runway is simply, it's usually used in startups. And that's the number of months that you can stay alive, that you can stay in business without bringing another dollar in. And so when Lori and I sold everything, and I mean everything, and got rid of all of our bills, and then moved to that tiny apartment and prepaid that 12 months, we knew that we had 12 months that we could survive without another dollar coming in. And that's what allowed Lori to go build out that tiny one-on-one training studio. And that's what allowed me to take that partnership in a mortgage company that really didn't pay any money. I was just building equity in the company.
Mm.
And that's what allowed us to build Lori's online monthly workout plan. And to do all these things without the pressure of it must pay out right now. And I'll be very honest, people, if they find themselves in this cycle over and over and over again, where they're never getting ahead, it's because they never quite make an extreme enough move to give themselves the breathing space, the runway, to actually get ahead. They do just enough within the edge of their comfort zone to feel a little bit better than they are right now, and then they wonder why they keep ending up in the same place. You got to get really extreme sometimes in order to then get extremely good results.
I love that. And I know you talked about as well, like people like get so comfortable in being good and they don't really search to be great. And I
Yeah.
love if you could speak to that, because I think that's super important, that some people, especially right now in COVID-19, people are hoping they have their job back in the same business
Yeah.
they, had, that they were comfortable in, but not thinking about, oh, how could I actually set up a life that's better than that? Like, how could I
Mhm.
become better?
It comes from a Jim Collins quote from a book he wrote, Good is the Enemy of Great. And if
Mm.
you think about it, it's so true. So, what makes humans take action, and like really good, effective action, is either to gain pleasure or to avoid pain. And avoiding pain is way stronger of a motivator than gaining pleasure.
Mm.
And so, what happens is you kind of reach this point in life where things are good enough. And that's why good's the enemy of great. It's good enough where you're not going to work the extra hours, or it's good enough where you're not going to risk losing your home, or it's good enough where you're not going to risk damaging your ego or your reputation, or it's good enough where you're not going to make that big bet or that big gamble because you're afraid to upset good, even though you know how awesome great would be, even though you know that you've got greatness inside of you. And I'll tell you, I've got a very personal story about this. So the story I told earlier, that was 2008, 2009, hitting zero, reinventing ourselves. Now, fast forward about 6 years after that, 7 years after that. It was about 5 years ago from right now. Lori was doing everything to be like on a rocket ship. She was collaborating with all the right people. She was listening to all the podcasts. She was reading all the books. She was going to all the events. She was doing everything it took to go realize her dreams. And at this point, because it was 5 years ago, things for us were pretty good. Like the relationship was good, the house that we were in was good, the our finances were good, our routine was good. But I'll tell you what, two things were really amiss. Number one, Lori was doing everything it took to be great,
Mm.
and she was on this rocket ship. And I knew that if if we stayed on this trajectory of me just kind of hanging out in good and her staying on this rocket ship, that one day I would wake up and that gap between Lori being great and me just being good would be way too big of a gap for us to have a relationship anymore. Like
Mm.
that's a real thing. So that was problem number one. Problem number two was, damn it, I knew that I had the capability of greatness inside of me. And most all of us do. And most all of us actually feel that, and we try and stuff it down, saying, well, I've done well so far, or I've done good enough so far.
Mm-hmm.
And when you stuff it down, but you know it's there, it's one of the worst feelings. Matter of fact, I would argue that the distance from feeling destitute to good is a shorter distance and feels more tolerable than the distance from good to great,
Mm.
believe it or not. And so it can be a painful thing to know that you were capable of this, or you could have done that, and you didn't do what it took to go experience that. And so something had to change for me. And we were out to, when it really clicked for me, we were out to dinner. We were at Hillstone. You would know where that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
In Santa Monica there. And I was sitting across from Lori, it's just the two of us as a date night. And I remember she was so excited. She was telling me about these exciting people that she had a call with that day. And they're going to do this exciting project and this exciting collaboration. And I remember sitting there, Erica, being like,
Mm.
why the hell does everything have to be so exciting? Like, what's wrong with just good like it is right now? And all of a sudden it hit me when I had that thought.
Mm.
I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? That your wife is so excited right now about this cool new direction that she's able to take. And you're saying, what's wrong? Why do you have to be motivated? What's what's wrong with the way things are right now. That's not a her problem. That's a me problem,
Right.
right? And I took note that night. I didn't say anything, but I took note that night that something had to change. And I was scrolling Instagram, ironically, the next couple of days is what you do when things are good. And I came across this guy who I did not know then. And I know him now, but I did not know then. And he had this really cheesy video up of him in his garage. And he in his garage, it was like he pans in this video and he says, what I love is this Ferrari and this Lamborghini, but what I really love the most in here. And he pans to the other walls of the garage, and they're just filled with thousands of books. And he goes on to say that he reads a book a day every single day of his life.
Wow.
And I thought, holy crap, if this guy can be successful enough to accumulate these things and still read a book a day every single day, I don't know how he does it, but I need to figure that out. And it was like the seed that was planted in me. And for a few days, it kind of stewed and it kind of grew. And by the end of that week, I went to Lori and I said, babe, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to read 30 books in the next 30 days because I feel like I need to do something to kind of get me to the next level. And Erica, she never said anything to me, but I saw that look of like relief or her trying to kind of hold back some excitement, like finally,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so she said, yeah, no problem. I'll support you, whatever it takes. And sure enough, I went on to read 30 books in 30 days. And it changed my life forever. And not because of the knowledge in the books, that was part of it, but the new habits, the new realizations, and the number one thing, this confirmation of giving being the secret to everything that you want. And I'll talk about that in a sec if you want.
Yeah.
But that went on to change my life, put me on my own rocket ship. And so here we are today, absolutely thriving. And Lori and I don't have a gap in our relationship that would have been there if I would have just settled for good instead of chasing down great, right? We would have been another one of those stories where a couple that everybody thought was a good couple distanced themselves to the point where all of a sudden they had nothing in common and they broke up or they got divorced or whatever. So, to answer your question or to put a bow on it, I'll tell you that gap from good to great, it's not like a luxury to go take that journey. It's a freaking necessity to go take that journey. Because if somebody else in your life is taking it, they're going to leave you behind. Not intentionally, not because they don't care about you, but you're going to pull yourself out of the mix. You're going to leave yourself behind because they have every right to go unapologetically where they are meant to go. And if you have this calling to go be great, but you're afraid of leaving your friends behind, your significant other behind, people you care about behind, you need to realize that you're never leaving anybody behind. They have the choice to come along, just like I made the choice when I realized where Lori was going to come along in my own way. So you're never leaving anyone behind. They have the choice to come along. And I'll tell you, if you stay back to make other people comfortable, if you stay back in good instead of chasing down great for the benefit of others, then you are guaranteed to sabotage those relationships because now you will have resentment. Now you will have sadness. Now you will have that struggle of what could have been. And you'll sabotage those relationships as a result. But if you go ahead and you take that journey, you get on that rocket ship and you go towards great, then the upside is you might actually show those people that you were afraid of leaving behind, you might show them what's possible. Or like Lori did, you might inspire them to take action. Or you might demonstrate what the path looks like because you went first. So one way, if you stay back, you're guaranteed to ruin that relationship further. But if you go where you're meant to go unapologetically, there's a really good chance you're going to inspire the people you care about to come along. And if they don't,
that message. I love that message, and I completely agree. And I feel on the similar path. Like I'm on this constant growth path, and I always think about this with my boyfriend too. Is like I want him to be on the same path as me, but I know all I could do is inspire him to do, to whatever he's intrigued by, and hopefully he'll join me on the path and we'll grow in that direction together. But I completely agree. It's a perfect message. And I know I've heard you speak about this giving. That was the one common denominator that you discovered in these books. And if you could touch on that, because I think it's important because that's part of who you are and also part of how you use your money. So
yeah, for sure. This is like my favorite thing to talk about. So when I read the 30 books in 30 days, it was confirmed for me that giving was a secret to absolutely everything you want. And here's why. Here's what happened. My criteria, Erica, for these books was hilarious. It had to be less than 300 pages because so I had a chance of finishing it. And it had to improve me in some way. That was it. Generic
Love it.
rules. So it was like 5 steps to this, a fable about that, a biography about this person. There were spiritual books. There were business books, you name it. Super weird agenda of books. And despite all of them trying to sell a different message, halfway through, I remember about 14 books in, rolling over in bed, just finishing that book for the day and saying to Lori, babe, you're not going to believe this, but so far, every single one of these books, there's a common thread that no matter what they're trying to sell me, giving is like one of the biggest ways to get there. And so I kind of kept my eye on that through the rest of the books. And sure enough, all 30 out of 30 books, giving was the common thread that held true through all of those books in one way or another. And it was confirmation for me of something that I actually always felt. And that is generosity is key. Giving is the secret to whatever you want. Because growing up, I knew a couple of things about myself. And you have to imagine growing up in the Midwest. I know you're California born and raised, and there's a lot of dreamers out here and a lot of success.
Yep.
In the Midwest, there's really good things about growing up in the Midwest. Good family values, good work ethic, that kind of thing. But one of the things that's missing is people cultivating huge dreaming and a lot of opportunity compared to the coasts. Now, picture being a kid growing up in the Midwest. And even at a young age, 5, 6, 7, 8, I am unapologetically drawn to really nice things. Middle class family, so it's not like we had the really nice things. We had a very nice upbringing, but I mean, I was drawn to the nicest of cars at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and the nicest of homes. Erica, I would make my parents drive me through the neighborhoods with the biggest houses in the area that we grew up over and over and over again so I could look at them at a young age. How weird is that, right? So I had this thing in me where I was really attracted to success, to nice things. And at the same time, I was taught you're not supposed to pursue things, or you're not supposed to pursue, great riches. And simultaneously, my parents, whether they realized it or not, yeah, I'm sure this was intentional, they taught me how important giving was.
That's great.
And for example, in church, they would let my brother and I put the money in the offering plate that would come around, and we would put a little bit more than the average family. And then at brunch after church, they would explain to us, hey, here's why we put that much in the offering plate today. Here's why we give a lot. And then right at the end of that very brunch, when the tip came, I remember 2 things happening all the time. Either my mom badgering my dad to leave a much better tip than he did, or my parents letting us boys figure out the tip and then telling us to round up and to add a few more dollars and that kind of thing, and explaining why. I remember them saying, the person that waited on us today, they could have been with their family. They could have been having brunch with their family, but they left their family to come serve and bring a happy time for our family. And so when you give them a few extra bucks, you're not going to miss that few dollars, but to them, it's confirmation of a job well done. And that might start a positive chain reaction where now they're nicer to another table, and the people that got that good service, now they're nicer to somebody who crosses their path later. And you can, with that extra big tip, you can actually start a positive chain reaction that affects a lot of people. So picture this dichotomy. I'm drawn to nice things, but I'm told you're not supposed to like them. Yet I'm taught that you're supposed to be very generous. And the one thing that you need to accomplish both of those things is money. So I'm not supposed to be motivated by the things that would make a lot of money, but I'm supposed to somehow have a lot of money to be able to tip people or give to church or do whatever it is that you're supposed to do with it to make other people's lives better. And that didn't make sense to me. So I really think that doing this podcast is just me working out loud. My childhood experiences of those 2 things pulling in opposite directions. But what that left me with, the reason I tell you that story, what it left me with was growing up, I knew I was generous even at a young age. I remember taking what my parents taught me and badgering my friends in middle school and high school when we'd go out after a football game to leave a better tip, or going back and leaving more money because they didn't leave enough. I remember picking up meals or things for other people. I remember volunteering. I remember doing all those things at a young age that most kids aren't drawn to do.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, it really felt like you needed to be successful in order to have that excess abundance to contribute to other people's lives who didn't have the same advantages that you had. And when I read that 30 books in 30 days, to come full circle here, that was confirmation. That was the first time that it made sense that giving really is the path. Giving really is the secret to every single thing that will make you feel good or that you want in this world. Like, want a better relationship? Give more time, give more presence to it.
Absolutely.
Want a better career? Give more effort to it. Want a better bank account? Give more seeds to that account that are going to turn into the crop, right? So giving, no matter what it is you're trying to accomplish, giving will be the fast track to getting you there.
And even giving support to another when you want support, I mean, that completely pays back. So I think, like you said, it applies in so many different ways.
It does. People just want to do business with someone they know is giving. People want
Absolutely.
to either be your partner, people want to be your customer, people want to support you, people want to share your stuff when they know that you're a giving individual.
Yeah. Well, so with that in mind, giving, the importance of that, can we bring it back and talk about the power of the pivot and where we are today? And I know a lot of us need to step into possibly a new space because we lost a business or we lost a job, and we need to recreate ourselves. So I would love if you could touch on, like, what advice could you give to people that are in fear right now that they have to create a new revenue stream, and what are the steps to do that from possibly the place like, hey, I just lost what I've been doing for 15 years, you know?
Yeah, that was me 12 years ago, right? So number one,
Yes.
I know how you're feeling. That's why I share that story in the beginning. When you asked me, hey, tell us who you are, I didn't want people to say, oh, well, they already have it made. I wanted people, for this very question that I figured you'd ask later, to understand like where we came from, who we really are. And I know what it's like to be panicked right now. I mean, as of today, they announced we're at almost 15% unemployment, the highest since the Great Depression. We're seeing small businesses close left and right. We're seeing 33 million jobs go on unemployment in the last 7 weeks. So these are truly unprecedented times. So you have a right to have some uncertainty. You have a right to have some fear, but you don't have a right to let it cripple you and convince you that all of a sudden you have no choices. And remember, I'm speaking from experience. So I'm not speaking from judgment. And there's a few things you can do if you feel like you've got a lot of uncertainty right now. Number one, you got to stop the bleeding. So the same way in my story as going to the extremes of getting rid of everything. I mean, we kept one car and it went to a tiny apartment. That was it.
Yeah.
Getting rid of everything and being able to build that runway and start over. We only were able to do it because we stopped the bleeding, stopped all of the outgo that was leaving our financial household. So what can you do right now to do that? Well, number one, grab the credit card statements for the last few months, grab the bank statements for the last few months, and just start slashing every single unnecessary expense that you can live without for the next year or two while you reinvent yourself into somebody, much larger and in a much better situation than you are right now. But then take it a step further. Because of these unprecedented times, you can call your mortgage company, you can call your bank, you can call your landlord, you can call your car loan, you can call your credit card companies, and you can ask for a several payment deferral. Like, take a few months, stick them on the back of the loan. You can ask them to stop accruing interest for 3 or 6 months. You can ask them to work with you to give you some reprieve or renegotiate those bloated leases that you have. All the banks, all the creditors are saying yes to all of this right now, because in the Great Recession just 12 years ago, which feels like 5 minutes ago, they learned that they were much better off sharing the burden with you right now and finding a way to get through it together than you going bankrupt and leaving them holding the bag. Because that's really what brought everybody down last time, right? The trickle down of people walking away from their homes and walking away from their credit card debts and all that stuff. So they're saying yes to the craziest of requests right now. So take advantage of that to be able to stop the bleeding. Get that monthly outgo down to the lowest number that you possibly can in your household. Then step two, once you've done that, now it's your job to go find a minimum of 3 months, preferably 12 months, like in my story, worth of runway. And Erica, people usually think that step two is like a nice to have. No, step two is a must do. Go find any expense at 3 months runway. And here's why. The craziest surprises will still be in store. Companies closing and sending home jobs that you thought you'd never lose. It's still yet to happen.
Right.
Credit lines being slashed. So if you think, well, I've got this credit line, or I've got this line of credit over here that I can use in emergency, they're slashing all the small business credit lines. They're
Mm.
slashing all the credit card credit lines down to what you owe,
Wow.
because the banks have to protect themselves. Another surprise that's happening right now for small business owners, credit card processing companies are now intercepting the payment from your customer to you and holding it up to 180 days as a security deposit in case you go out of business, so that they have
Wow.
the money to pay your customer back.
Mm.
The craziest surprises are happening, and more will happen. And so you need to know at a minimum that you have 3 to 12 months worth of roof over your head, food in your belly, safety for your family. You also need to relieve that financial pressure of making decisions out of desperation,
Mm.
which you will continue to do without having runway, um, as opposed to making good long-term decisions that support what you want your comeback to look like. And if you're listening to all this, you're saying, well, great, but I don't have any money, I don't have any runway. Get more creative. Number one, look at your checking, your savings, your cash on hand. And if you like that number, great. Most people don't like that number. So then take it a step further. What retirement accounts do you have? What rainy day funds do you have? What type of accounts did you think you were going to use in the future that you were told that you're not supposed to tap into? These are the times you tap into those accounts. As a matter of fact, the
Mm.
government has even given you a reprieve on any penalties and taxes on your retirement accounts up to 100 grand. So
So good
tap
to
into
know.
those.
Mhm.
Take it a step further if you don't have any of those. Who do you know that would invest in you? Who do you know that would lend you money? Who have you built relationship capital with, right? Take it a step further than that if you have to. Remember my story. What cars can you live without? What campers, what timeshares, what cabins, what clothes, what bags, what shoes can you live without for the next, you know, 12 to 24 months while you create your epic comeback story? Sell them. Find your runway. You can find your runway. Lastly, like, this will sound extreme, Erica, but I'm so serious about finding runway that if you have none of those things as an option, but you have good credit, take out a little line of credit, withdraw that line of credit, stick it in your bank so they can't close it down on you, and
Mm.
that's your runway. You can always pay it back later. And that feels like opposite advice of what other people would get, but
Yeah.
that's how serious I am about runway. So number one, stop the bleeding. That makes it easier to find runway. Number two, get that 3 to 12 months runway. Number three is this. This will surprise you. You're going to think it's financially or not financially related, but it is. And that is, come up with an absolute unshakable bulletproof routine. And here's why. In a time like this where everyone is operating from a place of panic and reaction, no one's making good decisions. And those good decisions, or those not so good decisions, will cause you to further hurt yourself financially. And so you need to control the lenses at which you see your morning through and your day through, so you can control how you react to the circumstances that happen throughout the morning and throughout the day, so that you can then control the outcome of your day. When you react to things and when you're reactionary, then you're just putting out fires. When you are proactive, then you are determining, despite what circumstances happen during the day, how the outcome is going to look. And so, like, when Lori and I wake up to a mantra. The minute I'm conscious, I say, I'm happier, healthier, wealthier, more fit than I was yesterday. Sounds cheesy, but I've immediately chosen how I want to see the day. I roll over, I wake Lori up to this. You'd probably hate this. Most people probably would. She kind of does. And I wake her up to, I shake her by the shoulder. I'm like, babe, I'm happier, healthier, wealthier, more fit than I was yesterday. Say it back to me. And I make her say it back to me. She's like, whatever. So she says it back, and then I roll right back over, and I just say a really quick prayer or a really quick accounting for 60 seconds of stuff that I'm grateful for. And anybody can do this, right? Everyone has stuff they're grateful for, because it's not this beautiful home I'm in right now. It's
Mm-mm.
usually things like, I'm so grateful that my dog Bananas, that's the name of my dog, is
Mhm.
laying
Cute
across my
dog.
legs right now. I'm so grateful that Lori's next to me. I'm so grateful that I woke up. I'm so grateful that I've got today to do, whatever I want to do to turn this day into. I'm so grateful I get to exercise this morning. So just 60 seconds of random gratitude. Now, Erica, look what I've done. In the first 90 seconds of my day, I have chosen what colored lenses I want to see my morning through. And it doesn't stop there. When my feet hit the ground, I've already chosen the colored lenses I want to see my day through. And now I I take that positive outlook, that outlook of gratitude. I go downstairs, I grab my coffee, and I've got a rule that I must listen to either a podcast or read a book before I go on social media.
Good.
Now, what I'm doing is I'm furthering the intake of what I call positive propaganda to help shut out a lot of the negative propaganda that's falling in our laps everywhere out there right now, the news and all that stuff. And when you can control the start of your morning, and then when you can control the later part of your morning by choosing books, by choosing podcasts like this one right here, by choosing a YouTube channel that might teach you something, or following somebody that is, shares something inspirational, then it makes it easier for you to further control the outcome of your afternoon. You don't react, you don't blow up, you don't lose a gasket over things happening. And if you can create your comeback from a place of being proactive and choosing how you're going to react to everything, as opposed to being reactionary and losing your shit, then that's going to make your comeback story epically better and epically faster than it would be otherwise. And then number 4 is this: you must invent new income. And Eric, I've been teaching for years.
Let's talk about that.
Listen, everybody, whether you've been sent home from work or whether your business is suffering, or even if you think that you are doing just fine right now, everybody must invent new income right now. Whether it's a side hustle, whether it's a small business, whether it's your main gig, doesn't matter. We live in a time, and a lot of people are finally realizing what I was teaching, the past few years.
Yeah, I know what you're going to talk about because I heard you
where
speak
it
about
is
this.
a non-negotiable to have multiple streams of income. And you must set up your life so that if any one of your streams of income, including your biggest one, went away today, that you would not have to change your lifestyle tomorrow. That's the goal. That's what you build towards. Now, picture everyone who got sent home from their jobs right now. Picture everyone who got sent home from their businesses right now. Had they taken the time to build a couple of streams of income so that when they lost that one, they didn't have to panic or change their lifestyle, they would be just fine. They would be capitalizing on opportunity right now. And so it's okay if you didn't up till now, but it's not okay to continue that lifestyle going forward, because there will be another pandemic, there will be another recession, these things are cyclical. So put yourself in position by inventing new income to say never again. Like never again will I be at the mercy of an employer. Never again will I be at the mercy of an economy being up or down. Never again will I care what my president has to say about the economy, because I make my own economy, right?
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in position ever again where you think something happened to you. Put yourself in position where everything's happening for you, because that's the position that I feel in right now.
I love it. I love everything you share. And I've heard you speak about this. And I remember that was one thing that really stood out to me, is creating multiple revenue streams. And actually, Tony Robbins speaks about this a lot, that he has revenue in, like, I'll just give an example, restaurant business, personal development business, and this product or whatever. He has it different categories. So if restaurant business closes down, he has something that might be really thriving at this point. And so I think that's a really powerful way to look at it too, is consider like, a digital online course or a membership platform, or, a product line that you could.
Something on Etsy, whatever.
Yeah.
There's so many things right now. Like, listen, consumer behavior, and let me know when you want me to stop my little rant, but consumer behavior, the psychology behind it has changed forever. And here's the proof.
Yeah.
My parents, they're the cutest. They're in their 70s, Midwest born and raised, but they live out here for 5 months every year. Okay.
Nice.
So Wisconsin in summers, out here in the winters. Well, this thing hits, and they have never shopped on Amazon. They've never used Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats. They've never used, alcohol delivery, any of these things. They're old fashioned. They go to the grocery store. It's like part of their day. Well, this happens, and nobody can go to the stores, right? At least not very easily. So before you know it, they're using Uber Eats. Before you know it, they're using liquor delivery. Before you know it, they're ordering everything off of Amazon. Like, they said to Lori and I, they said, this is amazing. We will never go back to shopping in person, lugging the bags around, like putting stuff in the car. We'll never go back to that again. My 70-something-year-old parents. What this has done to consumer psychology, Erica, is it has made it so that everybody, not just like the younger generations anymore, everybody has now been trained to consume, to get educated, to shop, to be entertained online.
Yeah.
Everyone was forced to learn it, and now they like it. And so, whatever you want to pivot to, whatever you want to create, capitalize on that. Because if you thought there were a lot of online businesses and consumers before, we just had tens of millions of new people like my parents that are now ready to consume online that were not consuming online before.
True. Yeah. It's that's important that everybody should know is like this is the digital space and we're not going to go back to normal. So I'm curious, what do you think? How do you think we should visualize or set ourselves up to enter or exit COVID-19 to get back into, our lifestyles again? Like, what should we set ourselves up? Like, what would be the best way to set ourselves up?
What a great question. So, let me first address like, what do I think it looks like coming out of COVID? I'll tell you, there's a lot of fear out there. And the fact of the matter is, there'll be more bankruptcies than deaths from COVID
Mm,
by like 1,000 to 1. The real tragedy, and this is not to take away any deaths, but the real tragedy is going to be after that, the number of bankruptcies and businesses lost.
yeah.
And while all of that sounds grim, I will tell you at the same time, there will also be more brand new solutions, more brand new products, more brand new businesses, more brand new entrepreneurs, and mark my words, more brand new millionaires coming out the other
Mm,
end of this thing than at any other point in our adult life.
yeah.
And so, if that's the fact, then coming out of this thing, all you have to do is choose where you're going to focus.
Mm,
Are you going to focus on what you think you've lost and what all the news and your neighbors and your friends are telling you they lost? Or are you going to focus on the opportunity? Are you going to focus on what could be? Because I'm telling you, it is a fact that opportunity never goes away. It just changes shape and it just changes location. And it's up to you to get off your ass and go find it. Because I'm a huge believer in what you look for, you will see. So if you're looking for the loss, and if misery loves company and you want to hear about your friend's loss, your neighbor's loss, because it makes you feel better about yours, that's what you're going to get coming out of this thing.
yeah.
But if you retrain your brain from this 2 million-year-old danger seeking machine into an opportunity seeking machine, then that's what you'll start seeing. And when you start seeing opportunity, you're going to start seeing how you fit into that opportunity. There's two great questions you can ask yourself right now coming out of this thing. Number one, what are the brand new needs? What are the brand new urgencies that have been created out of this new situation? And number two, how do your current skill sets and past experiences help to fill one of these needs? If you really sit with those two questions, you'll see the opportunity. You'll know how you can fulfill one of those needs. You'll know what your new product is, your new solution, your new business, your new side hustle. And then just take that and run with it. Because one of the best things about a recession, and again, this is not at the expense of anybody else having financial fear or hurting, but facts are facts. The world goes on sale. And when the world goes on sale, so does the cost of starting your business or your side hustle.
Mm,
And so building a website, getting your sales copy, getting your Facebook ads, which are like a quarter of the price right now compared to normal, renting that space for a gym or for a store, for all of those things go on sale. So it's actually a great time for you to make a pivot and come out of this thing better, because you get to build the machine, you get to build your business, whatever it is, cheaper than you could have a few months ago when we were living in a bubble. And when you build the machine for the cheapest that you can, and you're ready for the other side of a recession, which is what? The very definition of coming out of recession is months and months, quarters and quarters of upward growth. Your timing is impeccable. Your timing is actually in your favor right now.
yeah.
And so this happened for you. If you ever
Totally
wanted
agree.
to start a business or a side hustle, it was too expensive before. Everybody was getting paid stupid amounts to coach you, stupid amounts to do your website, all that, because we're in a bubble.
Yeah.
But now the world's on sale. Take advantage of that. Build the machine cheaply and go like thrive coming out the other end of this thing.
I love that. I love that. I honestly, I mean, like you said, not to take away of the tragedies of the lives lost and people that are losing their jobs, but I think this time is a gift that we're
Yeah.
all given. That is such a rare thing, like the gift of time, right? This is our time to see what's not working, see what is working, to reevaluate and pivot into possibly exactly that dream job we've always been wanting to create. This has been a gift for me. So I I definitely look at it that way. And I think we could really all thrive from this. And even in 2008, it didn't the most successful businesses come
Oh
out of that,
yeah.
like Uber and I mean,
Uber and Airbnb
yeah,
and
it's insane.
yeah, tons.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's such a positive way to look at this. And I know you talking about money mindset. I'm curious, what was your mindset before 2008 and what is it today? The
Yeah,
difference. I want to hear the vast difference because I know that's a big thing.
great question. So before 2008, even though I had generosity in my bones, making a lot of money was really about an identity. I thought being a good provider meant um, making it so that Lori didn't have to work and putting her in a big home with some nice cars, and then me going off and working 50, 60, 70 hours a week to make this happen in the banking world. I thought that was being a good provider. And now I look back and I laugh at
Hmm.
that. And so what's changed is instead of seeing money as something that justifies my value, I now see it as a tool to go make all of the difference that you want in other people's lives. And after you buy all the things, after you take all the trips, after you do all those, and those are great. Like, don't stop that. If that turns you on, still turns me on. Don't stop that. But after you do those things, you realize that something's still missing. It's almost like a rite of passage. And when you realize something's still missing and you give to somebody or you make a difference or you work with a charity, you get this dopamine hit. You get this feeling of accomplishment. You get this feeling of contribution that is unmatched by any of that other stuff. And then it hits you. Then you realize that money is a tool for you to simply direct toward whatever kind of cause you care about. And really, I'll tell you what, when you talk about money mindset, there's a lot of people out there. I feel like we've been in this class warfare for a long time. There's a lot of people out there that need to stop saying that greedy person or this person's a jerk or this person has taken it all, and realize that money is not distributed, money is created. It's literally factual. Money is created. And you are entitled to as much as you learn to create, and you'll be motivated to create as much as the impact that you want to make. And when you start realizing that, when you let that motivate you, you'll run through a wall. Every year, my goal is to give more than we gave than the last year by a significant amount. And when you have that goal, guess what? It requires you to figure out, oh, great. So I already had a good year. How in the heck do I do better next year so I can up this giving, right? And the great irony is when you up your giving goal, it forces you to up your earning goal and your net worth goal, and everything falls into place from there.
Mm, so great. So great. I'm curious. So what are you two recreating during this time? Or maybe a better question is creating at this time,
Yeah. Okay. So
if you would like to share it.
yeah, I'll totally share. This was already in the works before this happened, but Lori is launching a new alcohol company for women by women, like with a give back component to women. It's going to be awesome. It's spike seltzers, like that big
Yes.
rage
Yeah.
right now.
Yep.
So it is like a more premium version of everything that's out there, and it's just going to be the coolest movement ever. So that's one of the pivots.
Mm-hmm.
Another pivot is I love strategy, with working with entrepreneurs and companies more than anything else. And in the past, I ran these masterminds, and my elite level masterminds, they all got long, couple hour in-depth strategy sessions, and I never did them outside of the masterminds. And I decided during this time when everyone's pivoting, that's something new I'll offer out to the outside world, not just the mastermind members. And I've been doing a lot of those, and those are so much fun to brainstorm the pivots, to redirect their assets, to help them figure out, like, here's how to go from zero to this income in this amount of time. That lights me up. And so that's been a fun pivot for us over here as well.
That's awesome. I love it. I mean, I follow you both, so I see like all this action going on. And I think you shared this new building that you got, and I was like, okay, what are they creating now? So I was curious. Yeah, you guys do so many great things, and you're so inspiring. Like I said, I admire your dynamic with each other, and it's just you both are so inspiring in general. So I'm so grateful. And you
Thank
shared
you.
so many valuable tips. I mean, I've heard people speak about people that are very wise with money. They say, you know, you have every ability to call your credit cards and ask them to stop the interest
Yeah.
accumulating right now, and then, you know, call your mortgage company, rent, and all these things. So there's so many tips we could learn from this to help us move into a great direction and start fresh, really. And I love
Absolutely.
that you share your personal story of struggle, exactly, or not, very similar to this crisis. So
Mhm. Well, it's because I want people, Erica, to understand that if you're feeling how I felt 12 years ago, it's not the end. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be tragic. You have way more options than you think. And if nobody talks about that, then people won't understand that and they're going to end up right where they started.
yeah, exactly. So good. So good. I appreciate your time so much, Chris. Thank you for your valuable wisdom and your energy and everything and being present today, and keep creating. I love seeing everything you guys are doing. So thank
Right
you
back
again
at
so
you.
much.
Right back at you. Such a pleasure to be on and just keep, I love your show. I love everything that you're doing. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it.